Hi everyone, this is the Hungry Math Professor here. Thank you for coming to my channel. And today we are going to be discussing Logicomix, which is this great graphic novel. It's very well designed and written. And the graphic novel follows the character Bertrand Russell throughout his life, so throughout the 19th to 20th century, and tells the story of the development of the foundations of mathematics, but also this quest, which I think took place in philosophy and mathematics and logic at that point in history for absolute certainty. There is this, ideas in the air that one can develop these systems of language, these formal systems where one could possibly have an absolutely certain system. And the idea is something to the effect of this will involve a foundation of logic. And if we're going to have something absolutely certain, we better start with mathematics. And the book follows Bertrand Russell as sort of the central figure in this journey, but it also, of course, includes many different mathematicians and logicians and philosophers in the story. But I think they chose Bertrand Russell as the centerpiece for a good reason. A lot of people would agree, I believe, with that choice. And of course, along the way, we meet many different characters who are involved in this story. So, in particular, Gottlob Frege, who's attributed to sort of making a huge contribution to logic, and at that time, and then we meet G.E. Moore, who is, along with Russell, are usually attributed as and Frege as like the founders of analytic philosophy, which is like this whole area of philosophy, which is very much centered on finding a carefully logical language and developing logic in philosophy. And along the way, we also meet George Cantor and we meet Poincare and Hilbert, who clash over like the philosophy that they believe should be the correct philosophy for mathematics. Poincare emphasizing intuition, and Hilbert emphasizing some kind of formal language for expressing mathematics. And Hilbert puts forward this program, which I've mentioned in other videos, where he wants a axiomatic system for mathematics, which can be shown to be consistent, complete, and decidable. And again, that sort of represents this ideas in the air that we can have these sort of absolutely certain uh, foundations for mathematics and possibly for other areas of philosophy. And so along the way, we also meet Wittgenstein, who was a student of Russell and very important to the analytic philosophy tradition. We're also introduced to the Vienna Circle, which is famous for their ideas about logical positivism and for their appreciation of Wittgenstein's first work in particular. And then, of course, we meet Kurt Gödel, who comes on the scene towards the end of this story and drops a bombshell of his incompleteness theorems, which completely destroy sort of Hilbert's idea, at least the way that he described it. And the story then ends with this reflection of Bertrand Russell sort of later in his life. And I should mention that the Logic comic starts and ends with Russell later in his life giving this lecture on the on World War II and like whether we should, whether we should get involved, the United States should get involved in World War II or not. And the book ends with Russell sort of having this humble reflection on the fact that like basically his project for absolute certainty, which again a good part of the book shows Russell and Whitehead, writing the Principia Mathematica, this 3 volume ginormous work where they're trying to lay a foundation for mathematics in logic, where they're trying to show that there is no difference between logic and mathematics because they're piggybacking off of Frege's logicist project, which ultimately fails. But this project winds up having a big influence on the development of the foundations of mathematics that we know of today. But there's this reflection that like this project, this idea for absolute certainty didn't quite work, and Russell doesn't think that that means that there's like a free for all and there's no such thing as truth. But I think his reflection is more that we need to be humble about our sort of deepest convictions about life, because although we should still believe in truth and so we should still search after truth, because again, it's not, Russell is never going to become a relativist and just like complete free for all. But in the we should have some humbleness in the sense that the things that we feel our deepest convictions about, and particularly about war or current events, other people feel just as deeply have just as deep convictions and strong feelings about, and that should create some humility and some desire to sort of hear other people out, is how I read the very ending of this. And also, it's alluded to in this book how, although the project of, the Principia Mathematica ultimately may have been a failure, and maybe absolute certainty was sort of too grand of a goal in some sense, that still this project led in a lot of ways to helping develop what we now think of as EFC, which is the foundations of mathematics and set theory. But also they point to how this led to Turing's ideas about Turing machines, and also led to what the foundations of what we needed to do computer science and develop computers. So a lot of the logical languages that were developed in this story were the kinds of languages that one needs to program computers and design computers. And so the other, I think, humble reflection of this story is that although a lot of the specific projects that these characters set out to complete were failures in the narrow sense that they did not complete the project they set out to complete. They're not failures in the sense that all of this comes together as like the community of mathematicians and philosophers and logicians and everything, and feeds off each other and eventually winds up developing computers. And I think that's sort of a very human story that we set out to try to we set out with certain projects, and ultimately a lot of those projects may fail in the narrow sense, but are maybe not failures in the broader sense because we influence other people, and we wind up with new ideas, right? So, in any case, I think you should check out this graphic novel. It's a easy read, but it's also a very interesting read and tells a great story of 19th and 20th century searching for the foundations of mathematics, and you meet many interesting characters along the way. So check it out and let me know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you at another video.